Sublime magnificence.
Hey guys, you know who it is, what's going on, when it's happening, where it's at, and why we're here today. How you doing? It is I, the sublimely magnificent Big Ugly himself, Omari Ellis Feo Grande on YouTube, back with another episode of the This Guy Hasn't Seen podcast, where we trade movies back and forth. And obviously, I can't trade movies with myself, so obviously I'm joined by my co-host, my running mate, one of my best friends in the world, El Director himself, Bill Smith.
Hey Omari, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure, and this has been a great run of movies we've had here in awards season. I've really enjoyed the movies we've watched, and I hope you have too.
I have enjoyed them as much as well. I'm not usually the Oscar movie type, that's what I'll mention in a moment, but it's good to watch these films and really get into them. And this week we're doing an Oscar winner for Best Picture, if I remember correctly, Slumdog Millionaire.
That is correct. Slumdog Millionaire is a 2008 film directed by Danny Boyle and written by Simon Beaufoy and Vikas Swarup. It is starring Dev Patel, Frida Pinto, and Anil Kapoor. A Mumbai teenager reflects on his life after being accused of cheating on the Indian version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And yes, that is correct. It won 8 Oscars in 2008. It won Best Motion Picture, Best Achievement in Directing, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Achievement in Music, Best Achievement in Music Written Original Song, Best Achievement in Sound Mixing, and then it was also nominated for a second song in the Best Original Song category and Best Achievement in Sound Editing. So this was the Oscar movie of 2008, the same year that we just watched in Bruges.
Okay.
So I think that speaks for itself on why I ended up choosing this film.
Fair. That makes sense. That's so, yeah, because we just saw In Bruges, which lost out to this movie. Rightfully so, if I do say so. Like watching
this was a big year. This was a big year. You also had and some big acclaimed directors. You had Gus Van Sant directing Milk, the Harvey Milk story, and you had many others that were I can't think of at this time. David Fincher in The Curious Case of Benjamin Button was also nominated this year.
Button, was that long ago?
Yeah. And then there was also a Ron Howard. Frost Nixon was also nominated this year, directed by Ron Howard. So we had a lot of big movies and a lot of big name directors. And this film of first time actors, no name actors, and some actors only famous in India, in Anil Kapoor's case. And then a kind of up and coming isn't fair, but a great director in Danny Boyle who had never really seen much critical acclaim on the level of this, obviously. So this is a movie out of my normal scope. But when it started to get acclaim in that year, I definitely checked it out very quickly and really enjoyed myself. I had not revisited it in that time period. I don't think ever. Maybe once. I don't think so, though. And so I was really excited to sit down and dissect this film with you. What were you anticipating?
Well, yeah. Well, like I said, I hadn't really seen it because I Oscar movies, Oscar bait, especially Oscar winners, if it wasn't something I already was on my radar, I usually turn off toward it. Not because I think it's a bad movie, probably because usually I expect said films to be like uber sad, uber like this ain't good. Slumdog Millionaire, I mean, it has Slumdog in the name. So I'm just thinking that, and I knew it starred a person from India, or that, but I was thinking more Slumdogs. I'm thinking it had to deal with racism in the terms of, and this is just my ignorant American mind at work, but racism in the terms of, oh, he was over here and the slum part of his life is white people putting down on him and blah blah blah. Just because, again, small scope of the world.
So you're thinking like a immigrant success story, or maybe even
along those lines,
an immigrant tragedy story.
Yes,
of just like come over to America, man, it's hard to be Indian.
Yeah, it's hard to be a minority in America, where a lot of this movie ends up being it's hard to be an Indian even in India, according to the film. In the context of the film,
and we'll get to that. There are some, we could just jump into it right now. Of like, I just acknowledge that there's a segment of people of India who are like, man, I wish you would have shown a little bit more. We're actually a very vibrant, technological, up and coming, community. Yeah. It's or not even up and coming. We've come.
They've got a third of the not a third. They've got like an eighth of the world's population just in that one country. So there's got to be all spans.
Yeah, this film focuses very specifically on one of the lowest classes of a large city in India. And so there is some acknowledgement, and also the word itself, Slumdog, was created by the screenplay writer, and a lot of folks don't necessarily love that. They're like, a dog, like. That's often used derogatorily.
Yeah, and they used it as a derogatory term. Like this slumdog who went on to be on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Now, I think I had been told at some point that Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was involved. And like he was playing that game. But I don't know why I never put together it's all in India or whatever. But nonetheless, getting into the movie, initial reactions. And this is a first for me on this show, because usually I try to take notes so I can be like, boo-boo-doo-boo-doo, but no notes this time. If you can't tell by my voice, a little under the weather. But I went into this movie, I saw the beginning, and it definitely was not what I was expecting, because he's getting tortured, being accused of cheating at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And as we go a few bit into the movie, it starts jumping around from time to time. And I quickly put together, okay, he more than likely didn't cheat at the game. And in fact, his life story just so happened to line up to answer these questions.
He's just one of the luckiest men in the world.
Yeah.
As far as this game is concerned. Like, yeah, every question is a pivotal, traumatic, brain-searing memory in his mind. And it just happens to be the questions that they're asking.
Yeah, and because the security guard or the cop was like, when they had the question, what's on the Indian flag? Like, is it truth abides above all, lives above all, or whatever it was? I do apologize. I don't know the answer either. He didn't either. He had to ask the audience. But they didn't even... I don't even think they gave us the answer. It's just, which one is these? And then the officer's like, my 5-year-old daughter can answer that question. He's like, well, who robbed this store the other day? 5-year-olds where I'm from can tell you that. They didn't ask me that question. I'm sorry. I didn't know. The other question.
How much does this plate of food cost in this food stand and down the street? Oh, you don't know that? Because literally everyone I know knows how much that plate of food costs.
It's 10 rupees. No, 15 since dollar. Oh, yeah. Leave me alone. But yeah, as we see more about the backstory stuff, we see his I didn't know if it was his brother or a guy that was just like the neighborhood bully at first. Eventually, it's revealed to be his brother Salim, who just as a kid, he was just a little shit. But when he helped save his life, like from the eyeball thing, with the which again talking about triggering memories, who sings the song? I'm sorry, they were talking about a song. Who wrote it?
Right.
And rather than butcher the name, we're just gonna be like, that's the song. And he remembered as a kid they were forced to learn that song because they were all like they were part of like a beggar circle of you kids go out panhandle, I get my own cut type deal, and I'll give you guys some money as well. But the kids who could sing, they would then blind them because they would make more money if they could sing and were blind.
Yes.
And Salim saves his brother from that.
Right. So what we end up doing is we're inside the detective's room, and we basically end up getting a tale of this kid's fucking life.
Jamal.
Just through him explaining how he answered these questions.
Exactly.
Yeah, and like you said, his life centers around him and his brother Salim, and they are orphaned at a young age, and they begin a life on the streets. And the first section of it is working for this gang leader guy, evil dude who just has
something like that.
Yeah, he just has a horde of orphan children that go out and beg on the streets for him. And for that they get to sleep in a giant pile on the floor and get like an evening meal. And yeah, and then he also fucking mutilates those kids so they'll be more profitable. So yeah, there are sections of this movie that are, man, they're rough. They're rough telling this kid's life story.
And also a third character is Latika.
Latika. Yeah, or Latika.
Whatever.
Latika. Yeah.
She comes into play early on too, the love interest of Salim. Not Salim, Jamal. And because when they were kids, because Three Musketeers, there was a question that got triggered by their memories, and him and his brother used to call themselves the Two Musketeers because the teacher also joked about it when they were teaching the Three Musketeers, and they get brought in by some
because they were
adults.
always getting into trouble.
Yeah, it's like, hey, look, it's our Two Musketeers now, Athos and Porthos or whatever the names are. And
Jamal wants to add Latika as the third musketeer, but they don't even know the name of the third musketeer because there was only ever two of them to get yelled at by an adult. So Jamal really wants them to be the Three Musketeers in proper fashion. He's even convinced that it's like on a destiny level of like, no, she is the third musketeer. The three of us will be together forever.
Yeah. Because despite like the shit Salim does as a kid, he does seem to care at least a little bit about his younger brother.
Yeah, he cares on a level as much as that character can care for somebody.
Yeah.
Salim is warped. He is a troubled young man from the jump. We see from even before they were orphaned, he was a fucking dick and a bully to Jamal, and then it only progressed worse from there. Yeah, because he seemed to always be the bigger and the physically stronger brother.
Yeah, and he would usually throw his elder status around, like, I'm the older, I make the decisions, and so. I sold your autograph from your favorite actor because I get to make that decision and you don't. It's worth money, so I sold it.
Yeah, their life of poverty leads Salim into a life of crime, and that only it goes from conning American and European tourists at historical locations to working up and up with the slum gang leaders to the point where when we see him at 18, he seems to be like a right-hand man of one of the big guys, and to where Jamal even asks him, like, what do you do for him? And he's just so casual of like whatever he asks.
Anything. It is what it is. I used to live down there in the slums. Now I'm a grown ass man can do what I want.
Yeah. You want to start just kind of
standout moments and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, you want to go first? Throw something out.
We touched on it with the eyes thing, but yeah, when they first did that, I was not completely cognizant of what was going on. I was like, holy shit. And then he's like, tells him, no, brother, they're taking your eyes. I could not let them do that to you. You know, I fought that. And that's when I first started thinking that Salim was like gonna like redeem himself. I'm like, you know what? You were a little shit, but you turned out okay. End of the day, you know what matters most, you know, family and all that. But they left Latika behind. And he's like, look, she'll be fine. Maybe, I don't know, but we couldn't stay back and go back for her, or we'd be dead. All three of us would be dead. And then, obviously, like you mentioned, the training the people, or the conning the tourist with the tours of the Taj Mahal. And
that's a fun montage.
And him learning, like, he clearly didn't know what the fuck he was talking about, but he would take their questions, like, I thought it was this, roll with it, and then now he can be more convincing going on because now he does know the actual answers. Like, so died. Oh yeah, she died in childbirth, as opposed to she died in a road accident. Oh, it's terrible. I heard she died in childbirth.
Massive pileup.
Yeah, massive pileup. I heard she died in childbirth. Oh yeah, she was on the way to the hospital. So that was fun. Let's see.
Right before that, they're multiple years living on trains and just kind of conning their way through sleeping and eating and making money on the train. Both of those are kind of combined montages to carry us in to because we basically see these three folks in three different stages in their lives, right? We got like I would guess like a 6-year-old,
something around there,
6 to 10, and then like a 13 to 15 kind of age bracket, and then like an 18 to 20-year-old, kind of bracket, and so that big montage of the train life as their first age set, and then a really fun transition of them like getting thrown off the train and spinning around, and the camera starts spinning with them until they slowly become the next age bracket. Yeah, that's a really fun sequence in a movie that can have some dark moments. So that's a fun one to highlight.
And it also helps show how he can pick up on small details to help him later on in life. Like the people, like when he was given the tour of the beach, and for the Americans, and Salim and the others come and just take everything out of their car, and he gets beat up for it, but the Americans feel bad and they're like, hey, give him some money. Like, I'm sorry, here you go. And which you're talking about people being like, you really, this is all you show of India? He even uses a line like, well, you wanted to see the real India, here it is. I can see some people from India being like, that's not the real India. Why are you saying this is the real India? So I can see where you're coming from with that. It's like growing up as a black person when people only take the hoodest of the hood things to be like, this is real black people. I'm like, that's kind of how it is. Yeah. It's not always suffering. There's a lot of it, but it's not always suffering just to be black in America. There are successful black people too. So I can see where people that
would just have an average, ordinary life.
Also true.
Like, because it's everybody experiences everything all at once.
Indeed. But yeah. And then eventually goes to him finding out who's on the $100 bill, Ben Franklin, because when he goes back to look for Latika, the little kid's like, who's on this dollar bill? I don't know, some old dude, he's balding, he's got long hair on the sides like a girl. Ben Franklin. Oh shit. All right, cool. Yeah, you're right, this is a $100 bill. And then the security guard's like, who's on the 1,000 rupee bill? I don't know, man. It's Gandhi. Oh, cool. They didn't ask that question, though. They asked who's on the $100 bill. and they asked me who's on the 1,000 rupee bill, I would have gotten it wrong. Instead, they asked me about Ben Franklin, and I happened to know that. But yeah, as the movie goes, when they kill old dude Masan, when they're trying to save Latika,
Yeah.
and that was a standout moment because he just first it just seems like Salim's like, oh, he got a gun, he's gonna threaten him, and that's gonna be it. But then he like puts the pillow over it, and he's like, I'm doing this to muffle the sound, and that's when you even see Masan come to the realization like, oh, okay, man.
This dude's about to do it.
Yeah, he's like, it ain't that serious. Y'all can leave. I don't want this. He's like, no, you never forget a face, right? That's what you said when you came in the room. Maybe this time I make an exception. Obviously, he's just trying to talk himself out of getting shot. But still, you can see in his eyes, he realized, oh, he's serious. And sure enough, he shoots it. And even the cops like, so you confessed to murder to avoid a fraud charge. That don't seem weird to you? We're trying to say you cheated at a game show. Like, no, we even killed a man a couple of years ago. Please, I did not do this. Which goes to the guard later being like, you're too truthful. I don't think you're a liar. I think you tell the truth too much.
Right. You confess to like 50 crimes.
Yeah.
The worst being murder, but you confess to a lot of shit.
You literally gave me your whole life story for better or worse.
I love the cutback at one point during one of the stories. I don't remember at the specific moment, but we cut back to Jamal in the detective office telling his story, and the deputy assistant guy looks enthralled. It's right before he makes the joke that really pisses Jamal off.
Yeah.
But right before he makes that joke, when we cut back to them, he's like, he is captivated by this dude's life story.
Holy shit. Because he seems at first like he does kind of believe Jamal. He's like, maybe the kid did know the answer to the questions. Why wouldn't he? Because he's uneducated and he's a slumdog. But maybe he knew the answers. Well, he's like, I've been beating him up all night. He ain't said shit. And then, of course, another thing that stands out to me, though, nearing the climax where he gets to the second to last question about the cricket people. And I just thought he was going to remember based on the TV he saw in that dude's house. It was just going to pick one of those players. But he's like, I legit don't know. And it's a commercial break. And the dude tries to call him out by cheating, by putting the B on the board. And be like, all right, let's see. And then he guesses against what he was saying anyway and still gets it right. And so that's when they're like, okay, he's cheating. He claimed he didn't know the answer. I told him this is the answer. He has no reason, in my mind, to not accept that. But as far as I was concerned, I was just assuming he was trying to lose at that point because that would be the morally responsible thing to do.
My wife and I were discussing that at that point. It was that him choosing to lose with honor, or was that him catching a vibe that the host wanted to fuck him over?
It could go either way. I'm erring on the side of him trying to lose with honor.
Yeah,
because it did not seem like he wanted to win that way.
That's where I was thinking. My wife was saying that there's a little bit of a sly. There's a little bit of a sly grinning from him at the host in that moment, like right before, like as he's locking in the final answer dialogue.
Because it could be B, Ricky Ponting, but I'm saying D, Jack Hobbs. But you don't know the answer. No. So it could be B. Yeah, but my answer's D. Like, hold that. And sure enough, he got it right. And it's weird. It's a good movie. It's got moments. I've tried to think through my head of other stuff that stands out aside from like the finale.
Well, you mentioned as we were getting going that, and I didn't even realize it. I feel dumb for not, but you and I have a very good reason for knowing one of the harder questions towards the end of the end of his first day.
Oh yeah, the freaking what is the goddess Rama known for holding? And or is it goddess or god the Hindu deity Rama? What are they known
Yeah.
for holding? And I was like, wait, I think I know this one. And then sure enough, it was a bow and arrow, which we know now because fucking RRR, the Rama, the character A Rama Raju, near the end of the movie, Ram's got a fucking bow and arrow that he gets from a statue of the deity. I'm like, a bow and arrow. And even him, he was like, yeah, I know what that is too well because my parents were killed because they didn't worship this goddess. It's a bow and arrow. So to go with your whole everything triggers a terrible memory for this guy. He's like, oh yeah, my parents were killed because they didn't worship this one. But yeah, it's a bow and arrow. And so that was cool that because of our watching these things and watching shit like RRR, it's like, hey, I actually know the answer to that. But eventually we get to the point where Salim has grown up. He's working for the worst criminal in town now. And he done got Latika wrapped up in it to where she's one of the main consorts to this guy. It seems.
That's what it seems like.
And they're trying to free... Salim eventually gets a full-on change of heart. He's like, okay... Once he sees his brother on the TV show, after numerous times of betraying him, standout moments like when they first break her out, when they kill Masan and they go hide out in the hotel, and then eventually Salim's like, you know what? I'm pointing a gun to you. She's mine now.
Yeah, that hits so hard because it's so uplifting right before it. Because they got free. They're partying in this empty hotel room. Jamal and Latika are having that moment where she's making the shadow puppets and he's just like telling her like, no, it's our destiny. We're gonna, like, you may not realize it yet, but I've locked in, like, we are going to be together forever. It's destiny. Indeed. Kind of thing. And then he shows up and we all know what's happening there, and it's fucked. It's so fucked up. It hits so hard. And yeah, and he apparently runs away from Jamal, disappears, and Jamal loses all contact for multiple years. And yeah, that's a rough scene.
Yeah, and not until they are both adults that they find each other again, and that's when Jamal finds Latika, finds out that she's living at this guy's house, and like I said, probably one of the main consorts to the guy. Yeah. And she's trying to tell him, no, I can't go with you, but he's like, I will wait in typical, romantic movie fashion. I will wait for you at the same spot every day. Please come. No, I can't. Sure enough, she does eventually come. And who's there to take her away from him?
It seems like the first day. Seems like that afternoon.
Yeah, she's like, you know what, fuck it. What am I talking about? I want to go off with this guy.
Yeah.
And Salim and the others catch on immediately. They take her, they cut up her face, or at least they put a scar on the side of her face. Yeah. And take her back. And dude's like, I'm going to go on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I'm pretty sure she watches that show. She'll see me. If I win, cool, she'll know I got money, because that was one of the main things. She's like, what money? What are we going to do? What are we going to live off of if we run away? And he hit her with we'll live off of love. It's like, I hear you. That's nice and romantic, but that doesn't pay the bills. But nonetheless, it was a good enough proposition for her to try to go to the train station that day.
Yeah.
Eventually, though, we get to the point where they're near the final question, and... Because, dude, eventually the cop, like we said, is like, yeah, you weren't lying. In fact, you tell the truth too much. Let him back on the show. Like, let's just wrap this up. And while he's going there, you can see Salim get his change of heart where he's like, my brother's never going to quit. he's even going on this Millionaire show in front of millions just to try and do stuff. So here's what I'm gonna do. You go ahead and leave. Hold on to this telephone. Leave. And
what was that, Omari? Say that again. I couldn't hear you.
Hold on to this telephone. And he even says, please, whatever you do, hold on to this. And so she gets stuck in traffic trying to get
immediately leaves the phone
and leaves the phone in the car. I'm like, okay, you left the car. Why'd you leave the phone? And then the final question, because of course it had to be.
Of course.
It was like, Arthos and Porthos. Oh, and I don't know the A one's name. I think it's like Arthos. Arthos and Porthos are two of the three musketeers. What is
Athos,
the name?
Porthos, and Aramis.
Okay, Athos.
And then you got D'Artagnan.
See, I would have gotten it wrong. I recognized D'Artagnan. I didn't recognize
everybody thinks D'Artagnan's one of the three musketeers.
Yeah, well, I don't know the other three's names apparently. It's because I was just like, oh, D'Artagnan. That's it. I know this one. I would have been wrong. But he tries to phone a friend because he legit like he has been all movie when it comes to telling the truth. He's like, I'm gonna be honest with you, game show host. I have no idea. But you're playing? Or are you taking the money? Oh, I'm playing. I still have a lifeline. Phone a friend. Who you
the
calling?
Only number I know.
The only phone number I do know, my brother, whose phone is in the car that Latika left behind.
It takes her a minute. It takes her a minute to put two and two together, but she eventually does answer, and then she doesn't.
She doesn't know
the question that's named after her. She is this person in the mythics of this story, and she isn't. I was even rewatching this. I thought she knew. She was like, "Yeah, of course. You've never known.
Yeah.
Of course, it's Aramis." But yeah, she doesn't even know. He takes a wild guess.
A. Any reason why? Because
A.
If I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. I just got to talk to her on the phone.
And she said she's safe, which means she's away from those dudes somehow.
Yeah,
so
fuck it. A. And it ends up being right. Everybody happy. He goes, runs into
the shots of like the Truman Show. The Truman Show style of that's what I always reference in my head, but like big hordes of people gathering around a TV silently waiting, and then there's that moment of like that's always so great. It's so powerful.
Truman Show is a great reference for that moment because I can see that. But yeah, they happy ever after, except for Salim, who finally doing the right thing ends up getting in a bathtub of money. I'm not exactly sure. It feels
about. It's ridiculous, but it's so Salim. It's so the character that we've known so far. I'm just like I'm gonna go out the coolest way I can.
I'm gonna send him bathtub of money. I'm gonna shoot this motherfucker when he opens the door, and I'll take whatever happens afterwards. Either way, I can say I went from being in the slums to dying literally in a bathtub of money. Not many people from the slums can say that. And then sure enough, he dies. And we get the final kiss scene between Latika and Jamal. Happy ever after. And of course, it cannot be a film from India without the dance number at the end. And it goes on, and that's fine too. I had no problem with
it's fine. It doesn't hold a candle to us. I mean, we just watched RRR. and so that looks like, like one of those office things where they were like, all right, everybody go down to the warehouse at 4:30. We're gonna do one of those group dance videos before we leave for the day. Like it's almost on that level in comparison to what we've just recently seen in like an RRR. But this also is just some white British dude doing a Bollywood dance number as a like a referential moment in his film. So, of course it's going to be
Yeah,
a little off.
yeah. Like I said, it was a fine dance number, but you had a good analogy there, comparing it to RRR. And but yeah, it was that was the movie. Can't really think of that much else that.
No, I think we covered it really well. I mean, what are your overall thoughts?
Yeah,
On
overall
it?
thoughts on the movie.
Like an 8-time Oscar winner
Yeah,
is this film. 8-time Oscar winner, 10 total nominations. It absolutely dominated the Oscars in this series that we have been discussing the Oscars.
I liked it more than In Bruges. I do feel like it deserved the nod over In Bruges. Frost Nixon had a slight peak of interest for me back when they announced it, but I also inevitably did not watch it because I'm like, at the end of the day, it's literally just a dude interviewing Richard Nixon in a room for like who knows how long.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be boring. But I will say it definitely, like I said, it definitely deserved the nod over In Bruges. I can see where all the hype for the movie came from because it was well put together. And I find that if you do the whole time jumping thing where you don't tell the movie in chronological order, if you pull that off in a respectable enough fashion, generally that's just going to make your film seem all the more like better.
Yeah.
Eternal Sunshine comes to mind where they jump around a lot. Everything Everywhere All at Once is universe hopping, and they do that a lot, and that is seen. That's something I've noticed as like an Oscar baity move that isn't seen as an Oscar baity move, but the proof is in the Jello, as they say.
Right.
So I liked it. I enjoyed it. You mentioned something about not really seeing it again from 2018 to not 2018, 2008 till now. I could see that being the case with me as well. It's not necessarily a film that begs rewatching. I won't necessarily turn down a rewatch if someone's like, "Hey, let's rewatch this," but it's not. Oh, I'm at work and it's late at night. I got 3 hours left. I'm putting on RRR. That's what I'm putting on, as opposed to we got 2 hours. Let me put on Slumdog Millionaire.
Right.
But still, very solid movie. Very happy that I did finally get around to watching it. And yeah,
Very cool. Very cool. I in second viewing, I loved this movie. It's hard to find complaints in it. It's a really good movie.
Yeah.
Does it hit all of my sweet spots to make it like a perfect movie for me? No, not necessarily, but a lot of movies aren't. I have no complaints for this film. It's very good. It is a very, very good movie. And looking at that year, there are some solid films that I've seen. Milk, Curious Case of Benjamin Button, I thought was overhyped. It was okay for me.
I like Slumdog better than Benjamin Button. I have seen that one.
Frost Nixon was good, but it's just like it's a two-person play that was just basically copied and pasted onto film. So I don't know what that gets. And really it was the story of this Oscars other than one note, and that was Best Supporting Actor for that year. And do you have a guess of who that would have been?
No.
2008, a film called The Dark Knight came out.
Oh, wait, that was the same year too?
That was the same year as Heath Ledger winning
Heath Ledger.
Best Supporting Oscar.
When you said
for
Dark Knight, I'm like, Heath Ledger. Like, damn, that was a stacked year.
Yeah, so I mean, without the performance and story of Heath Ledger's posthumous award, this is Slumdog Millionaire's year at the Oscars, and yeah, it's a very solid film. Real quick before we wrap up, we're also not only wrapping up this episode, we're wrapping up Oscar season, this little segment of episodes that we've done. And I just wanted to run through, now that we have reached this point, the Oscar nominations are out.
Ooh.
We have We have some clear front runners. We still have some debatable cases. But I am glad to report that leading in all nominations for a single film is a movie that we featured here that we both enjoyed, in Everything Everywhere All at Once. It is not the lead contender for Best Picture. That goes to Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans. And as you said, on like Oscar tropes and like trying to win an Oscar, it's that is the movie of movies for that. It's semi-autobiographic. It's spanning a long span of time. It's about movie making, which Oscars always loves. It's a lot of that. It's period in the way that, a lot of it is taking place in like the 50s and 60s. So yeah, it is consumed by, it's directed by Steven Spielberg. So yeah, it is consumed with all of those notes of, well, this should win an Oscar. And that is definitely the heavy favorite. But most people are putting Everything Everywhere All at Once right there at number 2, followed very closely behind by Banshees of Inisherin, the spiritual sequel to the film we watched in Bruges. Which I am here to report I have now seen, and it is a very, very good movie, just as good as In Bruges, if not better, and would recommend it to anybody watching. So big push for Everything Everywhere All at Once for Best Picture, and a great season in all, and I'm really happy we were able to do this little themed chunk of episodes.
And hey, we kind of hit the nail on the head with a lot of it, like the In Bruges, a
lot of stuff that we tried to feature here. Yeah, Brendan Fraser is heavily favored in The Whale for Best Actor, kind of side by side with Austin Butler and Elvis. Don't get me started on that. That would be total bullshit. He's doing an impersonation, and he's not even. He looks like Elvis. Butler, he sounds like Elvis. Sure, okay, but like anytime you ask him to do anything beyond looking and sounding like Elvis, it falls so fucking flat. It's like ridiculous.
The guy that played Biggie in the Biggie movie, or because that's what I heard about him. He looks like Biggie Smalls and can sound like him, but that's about it.
Yeah, like anytime you ask him to be like, Martin Luther King just died, react to it. But if you ask him to go on stage and pretend to be Elvis singing Blue Suede Shoes,
he got it.
It's amazing. But literally everything after that, bleh. But anyway, Brendan Fraser is highly favored for Best Actor, and we featured him in Airheads. Top Gun Maverick is nominated for Best Picture. We featured that with Top Gun.
Everything Everywhere All at Once.
We did Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is literally leading nominations this year. Banshees of Inisherin, represented by our film In Bruges. And now we have done...
What was the two-parter with Airheads? Because we did Airheads as
that was Top Gun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And now this one, Slumdog Millionaire, is really just a reference to the Oscars itself. Yeah. Because of its gigantic year in 2008 with 10 nominations and 8 wins, as we expressed.
That's crazy. But yeah, so that is the award season stuff. That was a great job by you with the theme and a lot of the choices. We did good. And RRR apparently was in talks at one point as a best
of course, yeah.
film.
We skipped over RRR. That is nominated for Best Original Score, I may have spoke too soon. I'm not sure if it ended up getting score. It has been getting nominated for score in the other places, but I know it is nominated for Best Original Song for Natu Natu, Nachu Nachu, depending on what language you hear that song.
Yeah. Okay. Sweet. So
yeah, we hit the nail on the head all across the board.
Yay us. All right. So with that said, I guess we'll go ahead and move on. So next week,
going back to this guy hasn't seen true style.
Yeah, back to just book club style, but with movies. I'm gonna go ahead and go with an anime film We haven't had a lot of anime on here. It'll be Street Fighter 2, the animated movie from 1994. Not quite an Oscar winner, but a solid movie nonetheless. So that should be fun to say. It has a lot of clips that if you have seen the clips before, you'd be like, oh, so this is what that's from. You might have seen that. But me being pretty heavily into fighting games, I might have played a few, including Street Fighter. I figured this is a good way to kind of get us back into the swing of things. It's something that I figured that you hadn't seen. So yeah.
This is a pillar of, I mean, not this film, but it is like a pillar of the pop culture that assembles Omari.
Pretty much
is Street Fighter. Like, I would put X-Men as a pillar in there. I would put Street Fighter. There's wrestling.
Yeah. Lately it's been One Piece and Dragon Ball. But
right. Dragon Ball, obviously. Yeah.
Fucking anime. Just play anime is a big.
Yeah. But yeah, this is a big Street Fighter. I know is a big deal for you. So this is sure to be a big episode.
There we go.
And I'm excited. I'm excited for it.
Ryu in the background. So yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you next week. If you want to see more of us, obviously you can catch out other videos on the channel that we keep talking about RRR. That's one of our more recent reviews, as well as others. You can also find me elsewhere on YouTube with the Whatever We Want podcast every week, every Wednesday. I do that with my good friend Super Jazz. Exactly. We do that every week, every Wednesday. I'm also on Twitter and Twitch under the name Giotavi. That is Giotavi.
Come on in. Stop on by.
Thank you very much. Bill, you got anything you want to say to the folks? Any shout outs or anything you want to make?
No.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Adios.